Nancy Kaufman here. I want to give you a small talks presentation on implementing cues. Very often when children are just learning to speak, they need some support to help them to remember the new motor plan for the target words and phrases that we're working on. So we need to use some cues to support them and then ultimately fade them out so the very last thing that they are saying is as spontaneous and accurate as possible. So here are some cues that I have used over the years, starting in the early 80s. And I know that there are many different cueing programs out there, and these are just the ones that I have used and have been successful with, and I want to share with you. One of the first things that I will use are hand cues, and they are done as a visual cue on my own face and around my own mouth, and I'm not physically touching the children at all. These are just meant to be visual and maybe auditory cues as well. So let's talk about some simple consonants. The big important thing is that each cue is different from the others, especially with things that like a or a b or a p, which are all made with the lips together, and so they need to be different from each other. So an M might be two fingers backward like this, whereas a b would be pulling the fingers across our lips like this, b. And the p can be cupping our hands around our mouth and then pulling away, p. So that's for the bilabials, b, and p. But what about t, d, n? And those are also similarly made at the alveolar ridge. We need to make them different from each other. My t would be to put our finger on the philtrum and pull it away, t. Whereas the d, I'm going to leave my finger on the philtrum, d. And whereby the n is a finger on the nostril, n. We want to make all of these cues as visual and almost exaggerated as possible to help the children to know that motor plan. We might want to do h as our hand out in front of our mouth and blowing on it, h. Whereas a consonant like w is really a diphthong vowel. It starts with an oo but ends with an a. And so we would want to cue it as an oo, our thumb and finger near the corners of our mouth, oo. And then we're going to pull our chin down just a little bit, ooh. And that's really like a vowel. Some of the other consonants that we are going to talk about for hand cues would be some more complex consonants like k. I'm going to put my thumb underneath my chin for k. I'm going to cup my hands around my neck for g. You can almost feel your tongue folding right into your hand when you do that kind of a cue, g. And then F, I'm going to just put my thumb on the bottom lip and push in on it. And L, I might take my index finger and scrape from my neck to the chin, oh. Whereas an R, I'm going to make a little cross with my fingers and then scrape from my neck to my chin, I would do an S the way that the child would see it in the air. So I would start left to right from my point of view, so it will be right to left on the child's point of view. But make an S, and I'm going to put my teeth together in an exaggerated way so that they're on top of each other and blow. And then we need to talk about the vowels. Oh, and SH too, where we could give a shush sound, shh. Or we can take our thumb and the rest of our fingers on our cheeks and push in, shh. Especially if the child needs more support and understanding of lip rounding for that particular consonant. The vowels can be tricky because some of the vowels are diphthong vowels and they have two motor movements rather than just one. But let's just start with some isolated vowels. E, I would put my thumb and my index finger near the corners of my mouth, but we're going to push upward and into the gums. E. Whereas I, we have to start with ah, where we're going to pull down the jaw, ah, and then go to the E. I. So A would be an eh, which is would be thumb and index finger on the more toward the mandible, A, and go up into the E. And something like ow has to go from an ah to an oo. So we're going to pull down the jaw, ow. We have to think about those diphthong vowels because they do make two movements. And we want both of those movements in a word. So for example, if the word is bike, it has to go from an ah to an e, bike. Other cues are very important, and there's many of them. So I want to go through as many as I can to explain. And the very first one would be explanation cues. And this is where we're telling the child what to do. So for example, bite your lip and blow, and that would make them produce an f. Or how about open your mouth when you're going to try to get a k or a g, because that's the position of which your mouth should be for k or g. We might want to say teeth together and blow, s for s. Or even just to say round your lips. But those are explanations that would help the children to produce the sound that we're working on. Concurrent cues are when we're going to produce the word or phrase right along with the child. Whereas whisper cues, we're just going to whisper, and the children should be saying that target out loud. Although often the children will whisper right along with us, and we always run into that problem. Another type of cue would be something like an oral pastoral cue, where we're just going to have our mouth shaped like the target, but we're not going to say anything out loud. So for example, the word apple, an oral pastoral cue for apple would just be to say, and let them see what the underlying movements look like. We can also use gestural cues, and if we just use universal gestures if we don't know sign language. But if we do know sign language, then it would be a great idea to use signs as a gestural cue. We also might have to use a first consonant cue. Say happy, or how about a first syllable? Say happy, ha. Sometimes we'll have to cue for the second syllable. Say happy, p. And we're going to make sure that we are either giving an oral posture or the second syllable to emphasize what syllable they need to really emphasize. That brings us to intensity cues. So whatever errors the child is making, we're going to make the error louder so it brings their attention to it. So if they said bappy for happy, then we're going to emphasize happy. Melody cues are something that we learned from adults who have acquired apraxia of speech, and melodic intonation therapy has been something that has been successful for them. So we're going to try it with children as well. And that means to give a melody to the words. It takes the pressure off the speech motor planning system. So for example, if it is happy, we might give it a melody, happy, or even a 3-syllable word, animal. But sometimes when they hear the melody, it can help them to then produce the word. There is also something called backward chaining and or chunking cues. So sometimes we have to go to the very last syllable first and then produce the full word. Say happy, say pea, now say happy, or let's say it's a 3-syllable word like banana. We want to help the children to think of it as a 2-syllable word. So we're going to chunk the nana as one part. Nana, 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 and then put on the ba-nana. So that's backward chaining and chunking cues. There are also fill-in-the-blank cues. So up and then they can say down. Or in and, they might say out. The wheels on the, and they might push in the bus. So contextual cues or fill-in-the-blanks are very important to use. And they're easy to fade so that the children can then produce the words on their own. And then there are phonics cues or sound letter association. So once the children know the alphabet and then they know the sounds associated with each of the alphabet letters, then we can hold up a letter as a cue. So let's say that we're working on S and we're working on it on the final position. Let's say in the word bus, we're going to hold up the S at the end of their utterance. Bus, and hold up the S. Or maybe we're going to do a final T. We're going to hold up the T. Say boat and show them that letter so that they have sound letter association cues as well. There are written cues as well. And if children can read, then we might be able to highlight the different errors that they may make in a passage and use different colors per consonant. So an L might be in green, and an S might be in orange, or an R might be in yellow. But whatever it is, the children know what the colors represent, and then they can know what error is coming up in their written passage while they're reading. So those are the cues that I've been using. There are others as well, and I'm sure that there are many programs that also teach cueing techniques. I hope that you're able to implement these cues, but then we have to make sure that we're fading them. And an example of fading cues would be to maybe start with concurrent cues, where we're going to say the utterance just right along with the child, and then fade that to just us whispering, but they are producing the targets themselves, to move that to oral postures and gestures together, and then fade that to gestures only, and then fade out completely, and to see if the children can then produce the target spontaneously and accurately. Once we can get it spontaneously and accurately, we certainly want to get it a few more times. I hope that this was useful information, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.